So so production wise, everything's going good. Everybody seems to be up to date per the meeting we had with the production people this morning and everything that they when they updated you.
Yes,
Uh,
everything's good.
the good thing that you're going to want to know is that our production schedule. Well, even the production people don't necessarily know all of this, but our lead times are starting to come down because of things. Since COVID, I've been able to negotiate some different things with different vendors and do some things in a better way. So I really anticipate by the time the first of summer gets here, we'll be back to pre-COVID lead times. But I mean, so everybody right now is, from what I'm hearing, everybody's at least what 18 weeks or so, or what? I mean, what are you hearing that everybody else in the industry is at?
The shortest I've heard recently was 22, maybe 23 weeks.
Oh gosh! See, I heard somebody said something the other day about somebody being about 50 weeks. I'm like, that's hell, we were never at that. But
Yeah.
so the shortest you've heard is 22 weeks.
Mhm.
Well, we'll be turning them in 7 by the first of summer. I have no doubts, and then probably may be able to tweak a little bit even there because of some of the things that we've worked out. So that's going to be good. And you'll see that when we start to put that information out there. But just keep in mind that's coming. And then what else? What else was I going to ask? How's everything going with? I know you're going to talk to Miss Hill yesterday. So where's she at? What's going on with her?
She's supposed to meet with her local codes. She's a little nervous about it. Just wanted to know what to expect from them.
Yeah, which is understandable because that's the one thing everybody kind of gets excited on the front end, and then it's like, oh hell, what am I supposed to do? So first of all, and you can go back into your thing and find all these because of all of our phone calls and meetings and everything where they're all recorded. I don't care if you go back in the library and find this one and share this snippet with her so you don't have to write it all down. But number one is the number one piece of advice I give is make sure that you take the initiative to where you control the narrative and not the codes people. Because I mean, NFPA 33 and 86 and the national, I had them sitting right here, and the National Fire Code and all that. I mean, like, these are massive codes books that are interpreted by different people different ways. So the last thing you want to do is go, hey, I'm going to do this. Tell me what to do. Because God knows what's going to happen at that point. So number one, I'd tell her to take the purchase verification form that we send out when people first order, um, because that's the one where I took NFPA 33 and 86 and said per NFPA 33 dot blank code says do this, and then this is how we think that it matches it, right? So where we try to interpret code as best we could to the book, and then let them, then maybe you control the narrative better. Because I mean, we've had two different people in the same hell out of the same office before interpret a code different. I've had different codes guys argue with each other. So, the fire marshal or whomever that it is what it is. So at least if she hands them that, she controls the narrative. And the two questions she needs to be prepared for. Number one is the whole fire suppression thing. She's got to remember that in some areas of the country, depending on what size your building is, doesn't matter what you're opening, what the business is, depending on building size. By some code, you have to have fire suppression in the building. But if not, then probably maybe 10% of the codes guys around the country that I've talked to they start to ask about fire suppression in a powder coating booth. And every time I say something about this online, I get some keyboard warrior dude sitting in his mom's basement, talking about you must have, by gosh, the code says you got to have fire suppression in a powder booth. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's how you interpret the code. And because if the code said that and everybody interpreted that way, let's be honest, I'm a good business person. I'd just put it in every one of them and upcharge it. We don't, because different codes people either say you have to have it, don't have to have it, and the ones that say you have to have it all want different things. So it's like, there's nothing uniform we can do. So the people that state this as an absolute are absolute idiots, because that's not what it doesn't read that way. Um, so my thing that I always tell the codes guys that talk to us that are trying to figure out how to interpret it, like, go to any data sheet. This isn't a Joey thing. This is a powder thing. You can Google PPG, Sherwin-Williams, Prismatic, Cardinal, any of the big powder companies that actually make powder, in house, not the whatevers, but the ones that make powder in house that have data sheets posted online. Go to the bottom of page 1. The last thing down there is a flammability rating, with 0 being water and 5 being gas, and all powders are 0 or 1, period. So, and that's not me saying it. That's the people that make the powders. That's what it says. So, and a lot of times the codes guys will see that, and for the most part, they're okay with it. The only other argument that comes up after that is you will sometimes hear them say something about explosion. Like, oh, well, it's a dust, it can explode, and which is true, because what you sweep up in your kitchen or whatever could explode in an enclosed environment with a spark. Any dust can explode, and I get that, but the boosts are designed so they'll never reach the lower explosion limit, so it can't reach that. And by code, that's you can tell her it's I'm not hiding. It's not the goose that laid the golden egg secret. It's in the code book. It's 80 feet per minute. You have to draw a minimum of 80 feet per minute. Kelton and I were talking to somebody, or we're talking about somebody that's selling booths online, a couple of days online. We were talking about them a few days ago because a customer sent Kelton one of the copies of the specs that these people had sent to them, and was like, is this right? Is this legal? And they were selling a booth that was 10 foot wide, 10 foot tall, with like a 2000 CFM fan on it, and saying that it drew 120 feet per minute. Like, no, that's not the math. It's impossible. The math is width times height times the number of feet per minute you want to draw, which is 80 minimum. So width times height times 80 minimum, that's the smallest CFM fan you can put on it. So you can't say 10 times 10 times 80 is 8,000, gives you a 2000 CFM fan. It does not work that way. That's impossible. And again, that's not Joey math. Like, look it up. That's every engineering, manufacturing thing in the world. So, but the good thing about the Magnehelic gauges we have on our booths is when she starts to get that point and to shut them down, which is why the majority of customers, you're starting to see more and more industrial business customers are who's calling you now, because they're realizing that the stuff that's built right, that has all the safeties built on it's what they have to get through their stuff. So that's why you're seeing more and more of those. But I don't think she's going to have anything else other than that pop up. And again, show her this recording of our meeting, and you can always tell her to call. And if I need to talk to her, because guys far, I have no problem with it.
Okay.
So everything else seem good with that, as far as you
Yep.
know?
Yeah, everything else is going good.
All right. Well, we'll just keep plugging away and see where everything kind of goes from there.